All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our November Solution Series event. My name is Kelsey Richard, and I serve as the Associate Director for Workforce Innovation at the Manufacturing Institute. We're thrilled to have you with us here today. And in fact, if you are joining us off the heels of our Workforce Summit in Charlotte, North Carolina, we're so excited that you've continued your learning journey with us. Really quickly, I want to share just briefly about the Manufacturing Institute. We are the workforce and education affiliate of the National Association of Manufacturers, and together we are working really hard to prepare our workforce for today and tomorrow. And through that programming, we have things like Heroes Make America, which we're going to highlight today, which helps our military veterans and service members and families gain certifications and enter the manufacturing career space. We also have FAME, which is the Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education, an apprenticeship style work and learn model that's helping to train maintenance technicians across the United States. We have the Workforce Innovation Team, which helps with things like second chance hiring, workplace policy, and student engagement, and helping communities lead employer engagement strategies. And also Step Ahead, which helps all types of career levels in manufacturing with things like recognizing their leadership and community development and helping them prosper in their areas. And so with that, I want to start and kick things off today on translating military military service to manufacturing careers. And to do that, we want to poll you, our audience. And so very quickly, you're going to see a poll on your screen here. Awesome. And so as we kick this off, we want to get to know you, our audience. How familiar are you with using digital credentials and skill badges to identify and validate an applicant's skill sets for roles? Really just kind of understanding how to do that digitally. Really quickly, while you are answering this poll, I want you to know that this event is being recorded, and we will share the recording with you in a couple of days. And also, if you would like to engage with us at any point during the event, you can do so using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Okay, this is exciting, and I know it will be so exciting for our guests today. So most of you are not familiar, and this is a new idea for me, which is what we hoped that would happen today as we get into this. So it is my pleasure to now turn this over to my colleagues, Amy Thomas, who serves as the National Director for Heroes Make America. She's going to explain a little bit about her program. Amy, it's all yours.
Thanks, Kelsey. And I'll wait for the slide to come up. I'm excited to talk about our Heroes Make America initiative today. Our mission is simple, yet pretty powerful: to build connections between the military community and the manufacturing industry. Through Heroes Make America, we help transition service members, veterans, and military spouses translate their military experience into meaningful manufacturing careers, helping to close the skills gap while creating life-changing opportunities. Since launching Heroes Make America in 2018, we've become the proven model for transition success. To date, we've got 8 training pathways that prepare participants for in-demand manufacturing careers, over 500 engaged employers across the country, and placement in 49 states, evidence that our graduates are finding great jobs nationwide. Our signature Department of Defense training programs include integrated certification and career readiness training in partnership with local technical and community colleges, giving our participants the credentials and confidence to begin rewarding careers in the manufacturing industry. Next slide. We currently offer a wide range of in-person and remote training pathways to meet our learners where they are. Our in-person training pathways include manufacturing operations, industrial systems maintenance, automation and robotics, logistics, airframe and power plant prep courses that lead to an FAA maintenance certification, and through a partnership, CNC welding or CNC machining and welding courses. We also offer remote training pathways in manufacturing operations and logistics so that service members, veterans, and spouses can take advantage of our training programs no matter their physical location. These programs include industry recognized certifications with professional development workshops, resume support, and direct employer connections, ensuring our graduates are truly job ready. Beyond the training, we focus on direct connections with industry, bringing the military and manufacturing communities together. We host employer spotlights events that help companies highlight their careers, their locations, how to apply for jobs, and live question and answer sessions. We also host plant tours where we can bring them right to your doorstep and let them experience a manufacturing facility live, and virtual and in-person career fairs, giving employers direct access to highly skilled talent pool. We also have national sponsorships and manufacturing advisory committee that ensures employer voices help guide our program growth. These engagement opportunities help companies strengthen their military hiring pipelines while allowing our participants to explore real manufacturing environments. Next slide. Our Heroes Make America program operates at multiple training sites nationwide. Each one, like I said, is a partnership between the Manufacturing Institute, the military base, local technical and community colleges, industry leaders, and community organizations. The sites serve as our launching pads for transitioning service members and veterans to prepare them to step confidently into high demand manufacturing roles immediately after leaving the military. Next slide. Our impact speaks for itself. To date, we've placed graduates with over 500 companies in 49 states, and our graduates move into competitive high-tech roles in manufacturing, earning strong wages, bringing mission-driven leadership into their new teams. As you can see here, our placement rates are anywhere between 90 to 92% of our graduates. Our average salaries are in the mid 70s, and our average hourly wages are anywhere between $22 and $27 an hour. Each of our placement represents a powerful story of transition, a service member continuing to serve the nation in a new way, helping power the products, innovation, and technologies that keep America strong. Next slide. So before we get into the Manufacturing Readiness Project, I just want to say that Heroes Make America is more than just a training program. It's a gateway linking our nation's heroes with the opportunities to keep our manufacturing economy thriving. Together with our employer partners, community college affiliates, and national sponsors, we're building a workforce that's skilled, resilient, and ready to lead. And now I would like to turn the mic over to Satish Gaib to talk more about how our manufacturing readiness badges are helping drive our skills first agenda and employers streamline their military hiring processes. Satish, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. And thank you for spending time with us today for all of you that were able to join. As Amy mentioned, I'm Satish Gaib, and I manage our Manufacturing Readiness Badge program here at the MI. And before joining the MI, I spent much of my career in workforce development, helping businesses build skilled talent pipelines and design new approaches to tough workforce challenges. And I also helped create military transition programs that connected industry to the skilled talent pipeline leaving active duty. And so I'm also an Army spouse. And so I've lived military transition both professionally in my day job and then personally as well when my husband got out a couple of years ago. And it really wasn't until walking through the transition process with my husband. I always knew the challenges. I was observing the challenges when it came to how military skills were translated and communicated in the civilian labor market. But it made it deeply personal to me when I watched my husband go through it and face some of those challenges, and just being understood and acknowledged for the experience and finding his right fit in the civilian workforce. And so it's been something that I have been wanting to help solve for quite some time. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to be a part of Heroes and managing this particular program. And so if we want to go to the next slide, my husband had, when he was transitioning, he had a lot of the same questions I'd heard from countless veterans I'd worked with over the years. Things like, is what I did in the military relevant to employers? Will they see how my skills align? Will they trust my experience? Will I need to go through a more advanced training program to mitigate skill gaps, or can I go right into the workforce? And for our particular journey, going back to school wasn't necessarily in the cards. And so my husband, like so many, didn't have an opportunity to participate in certain programs like SkillBridge. And so we really needed to get him right back to work once he was no longer on active duty, which is the case for many. And so, these issues of like, where do I fit? Will I be believed that I know and can do these things are common and valid concerns. And the truth is, there hasn't been a consistent way to communicate military skills in a language that civilian employers can easily understand, especially at scale. And we know employers want to hire veterans. I'm sure almost all of you on this call today hire veterans or want to, but also around 60% admit that they struggle quite a bit in hiring our veteran community because they don't fully understand how military experience aligns to their roles. And if we were all being honest, I think that percentage would probably be a lot higher depending on the types of roles that we're evaluating them for. And with that, each year around 200,000 skilled service members enter the civilian workforce with valuable yet under-recognized skills because of that translation gap. So, we do it well. We're making a lot of progress, but every single year, 200,000 is a lot. And so that really necessitates the need for better, broader solutions that really help align skills and translate those at scale. And tools like ONET and like military occupation crosswalks, they help a bit. And those have been around for a long time, but mostly they support roles with clear civilian equivalents. So for example, in the Army, an 88 Mike is a truck driver. So a service member with that MOC would be matched to civilian driving or transportation related jobs. But that kind of tool misses the broader skills and competencies that service members develop, and they've been trained to, like leadership and problem solving and other technical expertise that apply across many industries and job roles. And what most don't realize is that the Department of Defense is actually the world's largest training provider, investing millions in technical training that has real value in the civilian market. And the problem is that training often lives in a 10-page training transcript full of course codes no civilian understands. And employers also never see that document. Those course titles and that training rarely ever ends up on a resume because, again, it's hard to decode and understand, and it would take up a ton of space. And we know we are trying to get all of that experience into a 2-page resume. And so that just makes it even more difficult. So employers never really see the full picture, and veterans often end up in roles below their skill level, feeling an underemployment challenge and rate that is 3 times higher than their civilian counterparts. And so if we want to go to the next slide, these long-standing challenges are exactly why the Manufacturing Institute helped to build the Manufacturing Readiness Program, to really bridge the gap between military skills, how they are translated and communicated, and how that aligns to foundational skills needed in manufacturing before any additional training is conducted. Because so many have skills that directly align and correlate and can launch themselves right into the labor market without having to go through advanced training if that's not a part of their transition journey, or it's just not something that they're able to participate in right away. So we wanted to find ways where we could get get them more aligned and directly into the labor market as quickly as possible, and then begin upskilling as they progress throughout their careers. And so with this program, we signal that translation and alignment through digital skill badges that clearly show how military required skills align with what employers need in manufacturing. And this approach helps service members understand their own skills in civilian terms and help employers by taking the translation burden off of your recruiters and your hiring managers, because not everyone is an expert in understanding military experience, nor should you have to be. And so to accomplish this effort, we developed a pilot and we partnered. So over the last couple of years, this was in the pilot phase. And we partnered with an organization known as SOLID, which stands for Solutions for Information Design. And SOLID spent decades supporting, and still does, supporting the DoD and all military service branches and analyzing military occupations and building pathways to upskilling for our troops. And SOLID already had access to the coursework for our military, the skills and competencies associated with that training, and deep expertise in analysis. And so that made them an ideal partner for us. And so we provided them a framework for manufacturing that reflected the foundational skills needed for most foundational manufacturing roles, so that they could begin crosswalking and finding areas of alignment between military occupations, that associated training, and mapping that to the foundational skills needed in roles like maintenance, quality, and safety. And so in the pilot, we started with our foundational manufacturing series. And so they analyzed over 300 military occupations and found that those occupations received training that aligned well to manufacturing roles in maintenance, quality, and safety. And so we launched a series of 8 badges at first, signaling those skills. And then as we continued to advance and grow that pilot, we actually scaled that. And so once we launched into a full-fledged program, we released several other badge series in leadership and logistics as well. And so today we have 19 digital skill badges that signal those military skills and how they translate and correlate to different skills within manufacturing, leadership, and logistics. And we have worked with over 1,900 transitioning service members and veterans, helping them create accounts in our badging platform and aligning their military training. And we awarded over 8,000 badges to those almost 2,000 service members that we've worked with over the last couple of years. And so if we want to go to the next slide. I wanted to level set on what digital skill badges are, because this is a little bit different. And so these are not certifications. These are not anything for a licensure. These are what we're calling kind of the micro credentials. They're digital and they're newer. And so part of, as we went from pilot to full-fledged program and taking this nationally and really embedding it, and not just what we do with Heroes, but also partnering with other national veteran service organizations to help create more access and opportunity for their service members to get badged as well. We've really worked on sort of level setting and educating what a skill badge is. And essentially, these are signals. They are visual, verifiable, and portable skill signals that represent competencies and achievements from someone's military service. So this does not reflect any additional training that maybe they went through, say, one of our skill bridge training programs or any other advanced civilian training that they've gone through. This is essentially bringing their military training and skills to the forefront in a way that is easily readable and understood by both the service member and employers. These badges translate military experience. They provide verified proof of skills that employers can easily understand. The DoD conducted this training, whether it was directly or through a training provider. And because the service member, it ended up on their military training transcript, that's already been validated that they met the standard to receive graduation from that training. And so these are verified. And then they also serve to increase visibility of both technical and those durable soft skills, especially for our leadership series. And what you'll see on this slide is this little arrow that points to the Manufacturing Institute logo on that badge image. And what that signifies is the Manufacturing Institute, our team was very much a part of that analysis work with Solid, because we wanted to make sure that what we were crosswalking those military skills and training to were directly aligned with the skills needed in manufacturing. And so as the Institute, with all of our expertise and industry voice, we endorse these badges as they do, in fact, represent those skills in those particular areas. And so if we want to go to the next slide. I'll quickly go through the different series that we have. And so these next two slides are our foundational manufacturing readiness series. So we have 8 badges in this series, 2 that focus on maintenance, which are the ones here on the left, maintenance and repair, safety and housekeeping. Then we have 3 focused on quality concepts, test documentation, and testing. And then if we go to the next slide, we have our safety series, and we have 3 badges currently in this series, but we're looking to expand this particular series. So we have workplace safety, environmental inspections, and emergency response. And so that wraps up our maintenance series, our manufacturing readiness series. And then if we go to the next slide, we earlier this year worked closely with Solid to crosswalk over 900 military occupations across all 5 service branches to really get at what are those foundational leadership skills that we know someone who's at least completed a first term of service would qualify for. And this is really a way to especially help our more junior enlisted service members articulate their leadership skills and skills they have in collaboration and teamwork and accountability and problem solving and decision making, all skills that I know almost everyone on this call needs within your employees and in your workforce. And so we wanted a way to signal that and bring that to the forefront for employers to know and be able to trust that these individuals had these skills, because they're in their titles and their work history, it's not always as evident that they were leaders because maybe they weren't commanding a unit at the time. And so, but they did go through that training and they do use these skills in their daily work. And so these are at a foundational level. And then our more advanced military personnel, our officers, our senior enlisted, they would be at a different level. And so they do get these foundational leadership badges, but they also have more training on top of that, which is evident in their work history. And so if we go to the next slide, earlier this year, we also expanded and released a series in logistics. So we wanted to make sure that we were also really supporting those individuals that had a lot of skills and experience in logistics from their military service and training, and how that aligned to the logistics skills needed in manufacturing as well. So we have 5 in this series around quality control and compliance, supply chain and inventory management, transportation distribution, warehouse operations, and material handling. And so after and follow up, I'll make sure that when we're sending out the recording details, all of you also receive a link to these badges so that you can see all of the different skills and competencies associated with them. And then if we go to the next slide, we're going to hear from 2 fantastic manufacturers when we get to our panel discussion. But one of the things I wanted to highlight is an easy way that I've worked with a couple of employers to align these badges to job roles within an organization. So one of the challenges, especially when we're looking to onboard and evaluate military talent, is that question, especially with those frontline recruiters, and that worry of, is what they did like in their job title or their military occupation, like, does that match what we're looking for? And so there's sometimes that guesswork that happens, especially at that front line. And there's a lot of fear and risk around if we pass forward someone who's maybe not the right fit. And so very often our veterans end up in the maybe pile or the no pile. And when we have 100 applicants in the yes pile, we rarely ever get to the maybe. And so this was a grid that was created in partnership with an organization where they actually took the skills and competencies associated with our badges and mapped them to the minimum requirements requirements that qualified an individual for a certain set of job roles. And so, for instance, where a warehouse personnel, if they had, our badge in safety and housekeeping and 2 of our logistics badges, they met the minimum qual. So that frontline recruiter could go ahead and pass them forward for an interview. And so it de-risked and took the guesswork and translation burden off of that frontline recruiter. So this is one way that they could be adopted, but there's many ways. And so our fabulous panel will kind of dive into that a little bit more in our questions, but I wanted to feature this beforehand. And so if we go to the next slide, I'm going to quickly go through what the service member experience is. So our badging platform that we use is called Map My Future. Anyone can go to mapmyfuture.com. If you are a veteran or you have veterans that work for you, you're welcome to leverage this as well and go through the process. But our service members will create an account. And then if we go to the next slide, they're prompted to, they'll fill out a little information, and then they'll be prompted to upload their military training records. And we also have links if they don't know where those are located to go download those online. They upload their records, and then if you go to the next slide, our system immediately parses that and aligns it to the framework. And then when there's sufficient overlap, they go ahead and they're issued those badges that they qualify for. And those end up in their profile in Map My Future. And we don't want them to stay there. And so we have ways in which they can share their badges out, both through like digital wallets. So we all have like an Apple or Android wallet where we download our boarding pass. So there are wallets where you can download your digital credentials and use those as you see fit. We also, if you go to the next slide, we have the view details option. This is a way for our service members to know all of the skills and competencies and criteria that they had to meet to earn these badges. And so we teach our service members to use this language when they're building their resumes or when they're in an interview and they're having to showcase, how they have workplace safety skills or how they've demonstrated workplace safety in their military service and how that could align to a manufacturing context or whatever the job is they're applying for. So this is a great tool to give them civilian language to articulate their experience, and it's a way in which we really help support that skill translation piece. And then if we go to the next slide, we wanted a way for our service members to be able to share this out with employers for hiring relevancy. And since we still use resumes to apply for jobs for the most part, we partnered with a platform called Smart Resume, which integrates digital credentials and badges directly into their platform and allows us, an individual user to build a resume in their platform and then showcase all of their digital credentials and badges right onto their resume. So folks in the platform can click on the Create Smart Resume button, and then they're taken directly to create their resume. And so if you go to the next slide, really quickly, this is what a smart resume looks like completed. It's been anonymized for purposes of this call because this is a real person, but it looks like a regular resume. It's got a professional summary, certifications, education, work experience, skills, and abilities. And then you'll see on that bottom right-hand side, their credentials. So you can see our badges and how they're displayed. It gives you a little information about the badge, and then sort of the image. And then employers can actually click on that QR code or hover over it with a smart device, and they'll be taken right to the platform where in real time you can click on their badges and see a little bit more about what the skills are and see that they were in fact issued to that person and that they were not revoked and they've been validated. And so in the age of AI, where, AI is writing a lot of resumes, you're not quite sure, if they have the skills that they say they have. This is a way for us to also not only help with translation of skills, but validate those skills in a way that you can trust, because these were actually issued and they can't be faked. They're not AI driven. And so it's a way to have trusted signals for the skills and competencies someone actually has and what they know and can do. And so I know that was a lot of information really quickly, and I bet you have questions. And so we will have time at the end for Q&A. So if you think of a question now, feel free to pop it into the Q&A box and we'll get to that at the end. But I would now love to transition us over into another poll. So we'd love to sort of poll all of you and really ask which of the following best describes your organization's approach to recognizing military military experience in the hiring process. So I know I outlined a lot of challenges, and so I would love to just kind of hear from you, like, how do you approach recognizing military experience? Awesome. So it looks like we recognize experience but do not use digital credentials. That's common. This is a newer concept for sure. Unfamiliar. Okay, hopefully you'll know a little bit more before the end of this today. We manually use our own internal process and translation when reviewing military resumes. Yep, and we know that that is a common strategy and approach, and can be difficult to scale and has a high degree of variability too. And so this is one of the ways and challenges that these badges can help solve for and make that a little bit more streamlined. And so thank you so much for sharing in that poll and sharing your experience with us. I would now like to transition us over and bring our panel of experts who have recently signed on to adopt and integrate our manufacturing readiness badge program into their military recruitment practices. And before I let them introduce themselves, I wanted to sort of set the stage that we're looking at this from both sides. So we have sort of the HR, recruitment, talent acquisition side of this perspective with one of our panelists. And then we also have the strategic communications element of this as well. So we'll talk not only about what this means for recruitment and operations, but also how it shapes your organization's story and culture and brand as a part of that. And so with that, I would like to welcome two fantastic leaders to discuss their experience. And so we have Paul and Tarina, and I'll let them introduce themselves, their organization that they represent, as well as their role. And so Paul, I'll start with you and then we'll go to Tarina.
Thank you. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and Satish and National Manufacturing Institute. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Paul Humphreys. I spearhead the corporate communications and employer brand communication strategy with Atlas Copco Group. Despite the hopefully somewhat sounding British accent, I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina, moved to the US in 2008, so I've been here a number of years now. Atlas Copco Group, as some of you might know, is representing over 90 brands now within the group and 180 countries and about 55,000 employees. So, always a constant need for the very best talent. And, we see within Atlas Copco Group recruiting the best talent as a shared model between HR and communications. We've had a love-hate relationship for years. Now we're all friends and it's working quite well. So, hence why I'm here to speak mainly on the communication side. But yeah, that's just to give you a little bit of background that we really see the talent acquisition model as a shared responsibility, which is something we've moved to in the last few years.
Awesome.
That's
Thanks,
me.
Paul. Tarina?
Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Satish, and to the Manufacturing Institute for having me today. I am Tarina Pleasance. I'm the Senior Manager of Talent Engagement at the Kinetic Group. We are the proud home to iconic ammunition brands, B&P, CCI, Federal, Fiocchi, Heavy Shot, Remington, and Spear. I'm also a U.S. military veteran, and before joining the Kinetic Group nearly 5 years ago, I spent a couple of years in the military transition space, most notably leading the USO transition program in Oklahoma. That's where I was lucky enough to assist hundreds of service members translate their military skills into meaningful civilian careers. And like Satish, I was also a military spouse for some time before my husband actually just retired pretty recently in 2020. And being beside him while he's navigated that space back into civilian life has been a journey. His career in the military as field artillery did not really easily translate, as you can imagine, nor was it simple or easy for potential employers to truly understand all the incredible skills that he brought to the civilian workforce. His transition, like so many, is a really great example of why programs like the Manufacturing Readiness Project are so important. Today, I own both talent acquisition and talent engagement for our organization, which means I'm on the front lines of building a workforce that reflects the precision, discipline, and mission focus that veterans bring and that our industry demands. I'm excited to be here today to share more about how we are planning to leverage tools like the Manufacturing Institute's Readiness Badge program to bridge military experience with the manufacturing excellence right here at the Kinetic Group.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for joining us today and just sharing your expertise and your background. And I know both of you are right in the beginning stages of adopting and implementing your own version of these programs within your organizations. And so, would love to just hear from both of you. And Paul, we can start with you. What first caught your attention about this program, and what challenges were you specifically hoping to solve for within your veteran recruitment efforts?
So, firstly, I think it's it's a really good branding initiative. It's very visual, right? So that was one of the first things that I think really stood out. And then the thing that I think you've done really well as an organization is keep it as simple as possible. The challenge when you do things such as this is it can get complicated very quick, and we go down the what if and yeah, but maybe this. And so to come up with, I think at the start, 19 badges, and they have a very clear criteria, that's the brilliance behind it, is keeping it simple and keeping it visual. And I think it acts a little bit like a translation tool, between the skills learned in the military and the skills that perhaps we look for in the private sector. So, personally, I don't have a military background. I certainly know what service members go through. My brother-in-law was a paratrooper with the British Army for many years. And when we planned and when we worked with the National Manufacturing Institute, you've got your own set of acronyms within the military, right? Like we've got as a company. And the amount of times I've had to quickly go and, Google as maybe Satis or Amy are talking about, what would be a good example? I don't know, an ASVAB or an AFES or an MEPS or an MOS or an OPSEC. So what these badges do, is really bridge that gap between the people, and we've got them, of course, in our business in recruitment too, but the people that really know that firsthand and perhaps the people that don't. So it makes it a little bit more accessible to people within the organization that haven't been exposed to that. And, importantly as well, I'd say we are a skill-based focused company. So, we're not discounting the importance of qualifications, but if you've got the right skills, we really want to speak to you, regardless of your experience or academic background. And I know from talking to our own veterans that we've hired through the programs, when they look at these job resumes sometimes, some of the qualifications and some of the experience, often it's not there at that point because, of course, what have you been doing? You've been in the military. So I think this badge is a great way of saying, look, we recognize completely what we do. We understand your skills. And we really want to talk to you. That's how we're using it sort of firsthand at the moment. Do you want me to jump into kind of implementation, Satis, or swap over to Tarina, and then I can come back to that?
Let's have Tarina, chat a little bit about, what first caught her attention, and then we'll get into implementation in a little bit.
Sure. I think what excites me the most is, to Paul's point and exactly what the program is built to do is really how it translates. For me, the military precision, safety discipline, and the mission critical teamwork into credentials that our hiring teams can instantly recognize. There's no guesswork there. They can actually see and understand that those skills absolutely translate into what we need. Veterans bring exactly the focus we need in high stakes manufacturing environments, but the challenge has always been visibility. Resumes don't always capture skills like quality assurance under pressure or hazmat handling. And so the badges for us solve that by giving us a trusted, shareable signal, to use your words, Satis, that accelerates the hiring process for veterans and helps us build a more resilient safety first workplace. I think, in conversations about this too, when I think about the features and when I think about how AI has created this space, especially as a recruiter, if I think about the times I've, seen resumes or, both from the civilian side and others, they can create, they can take resumes and take job descriptions and marry them. And so for me, it's kind of like that delineation. I can tell what is true information because this is actually coming directly from their JST, their joint service transcript. And so I can see and understand that this information is really a true source of information, and helps us navigate that space.
Yeah, that validation of skill I think is so important, especially with the prevalence of AI, helping to support the crafting of resumes. It's getting harder and harder to trust what's on that two-page document. And so I think signals like this that are validated from an external partner like the DoD is really crucial. I think one question I had for you, Paul, especially in the space that you sit within your organization, when you first brought this idea internally, especially to like your HR recruitment team, how did you build buy-in and interest among leadership within that team?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, as I mentioned, the challenge, everything is work, isn't it? So that's the first thought when you're talking about it internally. And of course, there's different efforts and different programs. And if you get too customized, I mean, there's just too much work to do in too many different places. So I'm sure a little bit like our organization, with your organization, that might be some of the first thoughts that you have. And then I go back to a little bit, the brilliance is the simplicity of it. So, it's pretty easy to translate. We're not looking at a resume or sorry, we're not looking at a job description for an hour going, which one of these badges is it? Is it A1, A2, A3, A3, A3.5, A3? It's pretty clear, so it doesn't take so much time. And so what we said is, like we're putting so much effort into veteran recruitment for all the reasons that have been outlined and because it's so important to us. And it's almost like this is an extra 5% as opposed to an extra 50%, if that makes sense, right? And it can make all of the difference, and I think it's tangible. We get feedback from it. Again, we are in the early stages. And of course, the ultimate proof will be in the number of applications and candidates that we attract. So, what we said is, and we kind of always joke that we call ourselves, the ultimate decentralized company. So we're like 140 locations and around 40 different operating businesses. And in simple terms, again, all those businesses are ultimately in charge of their own recruitment and their own recruitment needs. So it was very important to us to choose a pilot which had a kind of enough jobs that we could understand how it worked. And then so if you look at it, we chose these two entities around 20 miles apart. One's in North Carolina, Charlotte, one's just over the border in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And we really focused on the kind of maintenance, quality, and safety badges first. And really look to put our, mainly blue collar jobs to align those with the badges. And the last thing that I would just say is that I think it was mentioned earlier, was it 8,000 or 9,000 people have the badges now within the military community, and of course that will continue to grow. And so because we're putting so much effort into here, of course you want to be an early adopter because you have a chance to shape things. I mean, those of you that work with the folks in Heroes and the different programs know that they're very open to listening. They're very open to your feedback. So if you're in at the start of something, you've got the chance to shape something, and that was also quite appealing to our recruiting team. And so I made it sound perhaps easier than it was, like everything. If you're asking someone to do a little bit more work, it's never easy, but we certainly believe, for the reasons I mentioned, that the rewards will be there.
Yeah, and while it's a little startup work in the beginning, we hope long term that it really does streamline that recruitment and also that just analysis where you're assessing someone's fit, sort of at that front gate. If you have signals like this, it helps streamline that and takes the guesswork and de-risks the should I move them forward for an interview? Because we know that sometimes that is a barrier, and maybe not a barrier for all recruiters, but it could be for some, right? Because they don't have that experience. So this was something that we were really hoping in the long term help streamline more than it did create sort of extra work, but totally get it on that. It does take a little startup effort. there. So Tarina, would love to, because you're structured different. And so would love to just like hear from you sort of how you got buy-in and what that looked like when you were bringing this back to your leadership.
Sure. Yeah, I'm really fortunate. My organization already understands the value in any type of military connection for recruitment. But once they said, tell us what we need to do, that's kind of where I launched into, the discussion and planning. And so for us, this starts with aligning, and for me, especially from a branding and when I think of our company, it starts with aligning to our core mission. That's confidence in every shot. So I'm showing leadership how badges reduce time to competency. And our intent with that is that badge adoption will show an increase in faster ramp up for badged veterans in production role. Now, with my HR, I'm framing it as kind of like this talent magnet. Our plan is to integrate badges into LinkedIn and into Workday, long-term goal there, making us an employer of choice when we're at military transition and veteran events. We'll start with a quick win, planning a 60-day pilot in one plant, likely our Lone Oak, Remington facility there in Arkansas. That's where operation leads can see the safety and quality impact firsthand.
Awesome. I think that makes a ton of sense. And also, I love that you have long-term goals because those are also some long-term goals that we have as well.
Yeah.
And so, I know Paul had mentioned, piloting it at the two facilities and specific to some of those roles around maintenance and logistics and safety, more the blue collar side. Are there specific roles within the Kinetic group that you really see these badges aligning well to?
I would say yes, especially for hands-on roles like ammunition assemblers, quality inspectors, or load technicians. For, when I think of military precision, it maps directly to our tolerances. They're less critical, but purely for administrator roles. But even there, I think the leadership and safety badges open up supervisory pathways. Yeah, good question.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I think too, when you're able to better assess skill, you're better able to make the right fit choices for like job fit from the gate. And we know that impacts retention, right? And so when you're better able to understand someone's skills and what they're bringing to the table, you're able to make a more informed decision on where you place them, as well as what their career path trajectory looks like. And so they may be in a role for a shorter duration before they're open to advancement opportunities because they do have a lot of those skills that you need. And so with some, short upskilling and on-the-job training, they can get to that faster if you have the information that you need at the beginning to understand all that they're bringing to the table. This is sort of a hypothetical, but how do you hope that these digital badges in general might reshape your hiring practices, specifically for your military candidates?
In these early discussions with you guys, one of the ideas that came up was getting our current employee population, our veteran employee population badged. And so we're working through planning and hosting sessions to help our current employee population get badged. And the end goal of that initiative is that the badge veterans, we will aim to and will help them work toward earning early promotions faster by tracking their credentials. An example would be moving from assembly to R&D or research and development. And we want to boost engagement because skills are recognized in real time. Employees feel invested in and not just hired. So the way that we, plan to, like I said, do that is really leaning into who we know has already been successful in our organization and getting them badged. I think too, when I think about it for myself, and so one of the ideas that I have from all this too was I hadn't done it. I haven't looked at my military record, and so I actually went through the process myself. And I think it's really interesting now how just doing that on my own and thinking about my veterans and the people in my company, I'm really eager and excited to get them in there to do that because I've been out for a number of years and it never really occurred to me that some of the badges I could have received, a lot of them around leadership, which has been really exciting to see. But I also think of, the folks who are still struggling to translate those skills, and still struggling to find a way to talk about their time in the military and how those skills translate into what they do now, even if they're, you know, in production or in engineering. Yeah, so starting there.
Yeah, and I almost think too, like when we think about mentorship, right, of like our existing veterans in our workforce and how they might help support those new hires, being able to understand, you know, from the beginning how your skills aligned, and how you can communicate that, I think could be really powerful for our incumbent workers as well, and make them even better mentors, to those new hires that we're bringing in. And so I love that you're looking at doing that with your existing workforce as well. And we say more the merrier. The platform is free to use. And so we want to be able to acknowledge and bring as much military skill and training to the forefront, and align that to manufacturing. So we encourage everybody to go to Map My Future and see exactly what badges they qualify for. So thank you for sharing that. Paul, I'll kick it over to you. Same question. How do you hope maybe in the future that these badges help to reshape or enhance the hiring practices within Atlas?
Yeah, well, again, you know, just sort of, you know, helping people understand the fit is definitely, you know, a great thing from their point of view. You know, understanding, you know, is this a good role for me? And then from our HR professional point of view as well, of course, you know, it just helps people understand that this is a good fit. So, you know, in simple terms, kind of is a good time saver, I think, potentially, you know, for the company. And then one of the kind of, you know, unintended consequences or unintended things that happen is, of course, also tapping into companies' existing veteran workforce. You know, as Tarina said, you know, people were quite intrigued by the badges and said, okay, what is this? You know, and they were looking at it. And then they were also very proud from their own point of view that, of course, that they, you know, that their company was you know, was taking this effort and was kind of leading or an early adopter again, if you like, in the program as well. So, you know, that would also help them reach out to their different networks and give them confidence that us as a company are looking for those, you know, for those types of people. So, I mean, you know, if I had to summarize it in 2 words to be, you know, sort of quite blunt, I guess, or direct, you know, it's more, as in more sort of applications, and quicker, you know, as in quicker for everyone to understand it's this good fit, and then, you know, get more into the detailed conversations.
Awesome. I love that. So I want to go from sort of ideation and big picture to implementation. And so would love for, and I'll kick it back over to you, Paul. You mentioned a little bit of like how you're piloting this, but would love for you just to kind of share with our attendees today, you know, what initial steps that you took, and, you know, additional things that you plan to do to integrate this program into your talent processes, you know, and what advice that you have for folks that might be interested in doing something similar.
So, you know, as you mentioned, it is quite early, and we have our first internal review will actually be next week. So I could give you a little bit more. I could give you a little bit more detail there. But I mean, you know, certainly just getting used to the smart resume system. I need to get the feedback from our applicants about that. And again, you know, I think as more and more people join that on the application side, you know, the program is only going to get sort of more and more meaningful. And then from our own point of view, I think as Tarina mentioned, you know, I've got to work with our website, and LinkedIn and things is connected to the ATS. So I'm in the process of working out now how we can get those badges, you know, through and in our automated process. So, you know, I think from an advice point of view, it really is, you know, one step at a time. Feel free to kind of start small. You don't have to solve all of the challenges sort of day one. You know, we're there right now from the branding initiatives that I mentioned. You know, I think it's really good for us, and I think it's really good for the prospective employees. And again, the simplicity in the program just means that we got a couple of little kinks that we need to iron out, but there really isn't so much more work than there was before. So, I mean, you know, again, if you're an early adopter, you get a chance to shape it. And so that would be my best advice.
I'm hearing a recurring theme, early adoption. It is still time to be an early adopter. So I'll throw that out for everybody. But Tarina, I'll kick it over to you. Same question.
Yeah. So for us, beginning small and strategic. I've begun these planning sessions kind of with a cross-functional team. So between HR, my team, although HR, but on the talent side and plant operations, we're mapping top veteran MOS codes to our critical roles. So like precision manufacturing and safety compliance. And with that, and as I mentioned previously, launching this low risk pilot with a to be determined number of veterans hired at our plants and badging entry level skills through that badging platform. Tracking the data, it's always important. So aiming for higher retention and faster certification and safety protocols is a big one for us. We'll build internal alignment by co-hosting badge demo sessions with ops leads who actually will be the ones validating those skills on the floor. And then this positions badging as a proactive solution for our skills gaps, especially with automation rising in ammo production and a direct pipeline to future-proof, love that word, for all of our brands.
Awesome. That sounds like a fantastic way to get started. And I love that you have something built out that's robust like that. Thank you for sharing all of this. I want to make sure that we have enough time for some questions. So I'm going to kick it back over to Kelsey to sort of lead us through any audience questions, and then we'll have like a minute for final thoughts. So go ahead, Kelsey.
All right. First, this has been such an incredible conversation. Satis, I love that you teed us up with some great overview of the badge information. And thank you to Trina and Paul for giving us your perspective on this. It's going to be such an amazing tool for those manufacturers that choose to adopt it. And in fact, shout out to Byron. He said, this is a great tool. I'd love for our nonprofit to use it to support our candidates, which is another avenue, right, Satis? It could be very powerful for more than just manufacturers. But we did get a great question in the chat. And Satis, I think this might be for you. Is there a cost for manufacturing employers to partner in the effort to connect with service members, veterans, or spouses? Is Hero Connect designed as a networking and learning environment to expose individuals to manufacturing careers?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this might also be a bit for Amy as well. So for the program itself for service members to go into Map My Future and to be able to upload their training and see what skills they have, that's always going to be free because that's something that we, mission driven believe in, helping to support our military connected community. And we want to open the aperture and the funnel and the awareness of how military experience does in fact align to manufacturing, because we know over the next couple of years we have a lot of roles that we need to fill in manufacturing, and this is a skill talent pipeline that we need to do a better job, even more so than we're already doing, of connecting with and translating and helping to support getting them into manufacturing careers. But that also then requires support from our partners as we continue in this work. And so, we do open this up for our like Heroes Make America employer partners to participate in, but I'll let Amy kind of chime in a little bit on that structure.
Yes, you hit it pretty well, Satis. Yes, we do have national partners that get access to our Heroes Make America Talent Network and veterans that include these badges, and then they through the Smart Resume platform. So we have lots of different levels that employers can engage with. And if I think you have a slide coming up, Kelsey, that tells them how to get in touch with us if they want to get more detail on that.
Absolutely. Satis, were you going to say one more thing?
I wasn't.
Okay. We have just a couple of minutes. I just want to thank again, thank you so much, Amy, for your leadership in Heroes Make America and what you do for our military community. Satis, thank you so much for being our subject matter expert today. I know that so many folks are going to benefit from this information. And of course, a huge shout out and thank you to Paul and Sharina. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your insights. Before we wrap up the hour, I would love to share just a couple of more slides of information with you on how you can engage with us and specifically with our Heroes Make America team. And so what you're going to see here on the screen, as well as there is a link in the chat, we hope that you might be interested in joining for a virtual information session where the Heroes Make America team give you more insight as to how a manufacturer or even a community-based organization could hopefully get involved with the Manufacturing Institute and Heroes Make America. And then, of course, the conversation continues. The Solution Series is meant to be a place where manufacturers come together and share practices just like you heard today. So we hope that you will look out for our December Solution Series. I can't believe I just said that. The last one of 2025. And the topic is going to be on childcare solutions. And we'll have some really amazing manufacturers join us. But you can scan this QR code, which takes us to your, our Solution Center homepage where you can see all of the upcoming solution series. And don't forget, we will have some in 2026 as well. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.